6 things people never forget about you. There is a version of you, stronger, calmer, unforgettable, waiting on the other side of one brutal realization. Most people run from it. But if you're brave enough to hear it, your entire life will shift, starting today. Before we go deeper, let me greet you properly. This is Pure Stoic Practice, a channel dedicated to self-mastery, mental strength, and the kind of personal transformation that starts from within. Hello, everyone. If you want to grow, if you want to understand yourself, if you want to build the emotional discipline and clarity most people never develop in their entire lifetime, make sure you follow the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the newest lessons. And if you feel this message already stirring something inside you, please subscribe to support the channel. It gives us the motivation to continue creating powerful content like this for you. The chaos of life and the stoic doorway to inner power. How many years of your life have been stolen by moments that never deserved your energy in the first place? Think about it honestly. How many mornings were poisoned before sunrise because a single message hit you the wrong way? How many nights did you lie awake, replaying a conversation that the other person forgot 5 minutes after it happened? How many days have you spent fighting battles that existed only inside your own mind? We walk through life believing we are in control, yet most of us are living as if the world is dragging us by the collar, reacting, exploding, collapsing, surrendering our peace to anything loud enough to get our attention. And the most shocking truth of all is this: we don't even question it. We accept this chaos as normal, as if suffering is simply the cost of existing. But what if all of that was a lie? What if the world isn't what wounds us? What if it's our untrained reaction to the world that destroys us from the inside? What if the emotional storms you think are tearing you apart are actually revealing a deeper truth you've never dared to see? What if the chaos is not your enemy, but your teacher? How long will you let the world control your inner state? Because here's the truth. Here's the part that flips your entire perspective upside down. Life does not break you. Your reaction does. The events of life are neutral. They arrive, they pass, and they fade. But the meaning you give them, the emotional chaos you attach to them, the way you surrender your mind to every disturbance, that is where your suffering is born. And it's the very thing you can learn to master. This is the doorway into Stoicism. Not the dry, ancient philosophy people sometimes imagine, but the living, breathing discipline that teaches you how to stay unshaken in a world built to shake you. It teaches you how to reclaim authority over your mind, how to respond instead of react, how to remain centered when everything around you feels like a storm. Stoicism is not about suppressing your emotions. It is about understanding them, respecting them, and refusing to be enslaved by them. You are about to learn one of the rarest forms of strength a human being can possess: the ability to choose your inner state independent of circumstances. And when you develop this ability, you begin to cultivate a presence that people never forget. Not because you try to stand out, not because you demand attention, but because your energy becomes something profoundly different from the world around you. Most people radiate instability, anxiety, reactivity, frustration. But a person who has mastered their inner world radiates something entirely different: calm, depth, intentionality, purpose. This opening part sets the foundation for the journey ahead. It reveals why the world feels so heavy for so many people and why some people walk through the same storms with clarity and strength. It sets the stage for the 6 extraordinary qualities that make someone unforgettable, not through loudness, not through performance, but through the quiet power of inner mastery. The first thing you must understand is that life becomes unbearable only when we allow our mind to become untrained. The world throws challenges at everyone, but the difference between suffering and strength is determined by a single skill: the ability to manage your internal reaction. When a person has not built this skill, they are tossed around by every event, every word, every disappointment. Their emotions erupt like sudden fires, and their peace is held hostage by the behavior of others. They live in a constant state of tension, frustration, and emotional fatigue. But when a person begins to see the deeper truth, that external events are powerless without internal permission, their entire life shifts. The storms don't disappear, but the person stops drowning in them. They learn to pause instead of react, observe instead of collapse, breathe instead of explode. They learn that emotional control is not about denying anger or pretending to be unbothered. It is about stepping into the driver's seat of your own mind, refusing to let impulses or external chaos dictate your behavior. This level of emotional discipline becomes the first step toward becoming unforgettable. Yet even deeper than emotional control lies another form of wisdom: the awareness that your mind creates unnecessary suffering when it clings to noise. Most people are not destroyed by events. They are destroyed by their thoughts about those events. They create catastrophes before anything has even happened. They spin assumptions, fears, judgments. They rehearse imaginary arguments. They replay insults. They live in constant mental inflammation. Stoicism teaches you to interrupt that cycle, to ask yourself, what do I actually know? What story am I inventing? What part of this situation is within my control? And what part must I release? For many people, this realization is shocking. They've lived their entire life believing that peace comes from controlling the world. But true peace comes from controlling yourself. The deeper you go into this work, the more clearly you see that life's chaos is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to reveal you. Every trigger becomes a mirror showing you what you haven't mastered yet. Every disappointment becomes an invitation to strengthen your resilience. Every conflict becomes a chance to practice calmness. Every moment of emotional discomfort is a small doorway back to yourself, asking you to slow down, breathe, and choose a response you won't regret later. And yet, very few people ever walk through that doorway. They stay trapped in emotional reflexes, trapped in patterns, trapped in narratives inherited from a younger, less conscious version of themselves. This is why so few people develop the kind of inner presence that others remember forever. Not because it is impossible, but because it requires confronting yourself with honesty and courage. The truth is that emotional mastery is not built through comfort. It is forged in those painful, uncomfortable moments when everything in you wants to react, but you choose not to. It is built in the split second when you feel anger rising, but pause instead of attacking. It is built in the silence you choose, when your ego wants to win. It is built in the dignity you maintain when the situation tempts you to lose control. And once you start building this level of strength, something remarkable happens. You begin to transform from the inside out. Your presence becomes heavier, calmer, more grounded. People feel different around you without knowing why. You speak less, but with more intention. You move through life with purpose instead of panic. You stop seeking attention and start attracting it naturally. You stop being controlled by emotions and start directing them consciously. Your energy begins to influence the room instead of the room influencing your energy. This is only the beginning of the journey. This is the foundation upon which all the other qualities rest. The deep inner power that Stoicism teaches you to build piece by piece, moment by moment. If you stay with this message until the end, you will understand not just how to survive life's storms, but how to walk through them with a level of strength most people may never experience. If you found value in this opening, please subscribe to Pure Stoic Practice to support our work. It motivates us to continue creating transformative content for you, and it ensures you never miss the next lesson on your path to inner mastery. Inner power, the first three qualities that command respect. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that strength is not measured by how loudly they speak, how forcefully they react, or how intensely they defend themselves. True strength is something quieter, deeper, and infinitely more difficult to master. It is the kind of strength that exists beneath the surface of your personality, beneath your words, beneath even your impulses. It is the strength that shows itself precisely when your emotions try to drown you. And the first form of this strength is the ability to govern your emotional world with clarity and discipline. For most people, emotions arrive like storms, violent and uncontrollable, tearing through their thoughts and choices as if they were nothing more than leaves in the wind. One harsh comment can ruin their entire week. One misunderstanding can spiral into a fight that damages a relationship beyond repair. One moment of pressure can make them say something they cannot take back. The truth is that most people live at the mercy of whatever emotion happens to show up in the moment. They are passengers in their own lives, dragged along by impulses they never learned to examine. But emotional control is the quiet revelation that you do not have to be ruled by what you feel. The emotions will still come. They are a natural part of the human condition. But you begin to develop the space between feeling and action. You begin to pause long enough to ask yourself whether this reaction serves you, whether it aligns with the person you want to become, whether it protects your peace or destroys it. And in that pause, in that small moment of awareness, you reclaim the power that so many people unknowingly give away every day. You stop reacting to life and start responding to it. You stop being pulled into battles that aren't worth fighting. You stop letting your lower impulses speak on behalf of your higher self. There is something undeniably magnetic about a person who can remain composed when the world around them becomes chaotic. Their presence alone shifts the atmosphere. Others instinctively look to them not because they demand authority, but because they radiate inner stability. People remember them because calm in the midst of chaos is rare. It reflects a level of self-control that most people admire, but have never learned to cultivate. This kind of emotional discipline does not make you cold or detached. It makes you powerful in the truest sense. You are no longer a prisoner of your impulses. You become the master of your reactions. Yet the deepest forms of strength are not found only in restraint. They are found equally in the quiet, patient act of listening. Something that seems simple but has become almost extinct in the modern world. Most people listen only to reply. They wait for gaps in the conversation so they can jump in with their own thoughts, their own experiences, their own grievances. The result is that people talk to each other constantly, yet rarely connect. They hear words, but they do not hear the person behind the words. But when you encounter someone who truly listens, you feel the difference instantly. They are not in a hurry to speak. They are not trying to win the conversation or steer it back to themselves. Their attention is full, unbroken, present. They hear not only what you say, but how you say it. They catch the tremble beneath your voice, the emotion behind your pauses, the truth hidden between the lines. And in that moment, something profound happens. You feel understood. You feel valued. You feel seen in a world where most people are invisible to each other. This kind of listening leaves a mark on people because it is so rare. It is both a gift and a discipline. It requires humility, patience, and a willingness to put your ego aside. It requires the emotional maturity to allow another person's experience to matter as much as your own. When someone listens like this, they create a space where others can open up without fear of judgment, without fear of interruption, without fear of being dismissed. They become someone people gravitate toward naturally, someone whose presence feels safe and grounding. They become unforgettable, not because they speak powerfully, but because they listen powerfully. And then there is the presence of calm, a quality so subtle yet so transformative that many people do not realize its impact until they feel it. Calmness is not the absence of emotion. It is not numbness or indifference. It is the ability to maintain your center even when life attempts to pull you off balance. It is the discipline of grounding yourself before your emotions sweep you away. It is the awareness that reacting out of panic creates more chaos, while responding with steadiness builds trust, clarity, and strength. A calm person is not untouched by conflict. They simply refuse to be consumed by it. They move through pressure with deliberate breaths and measured thoughts. They are not easily provoked because they understand that their peace is not a gift they hand out carelessly. They do not rush decisions or force answers. They know that clarity comes in silence, not in frantic thought. Their calmness is not passive. It is powerful. It is active self-regulation. It is the ongoing choice to anchor themselves in something deeper than emotion. People remember those who carry this energy. When they walk into a room, tension softens. When they speak, others listen more carefully. When problems arise, they become the steady voice everyone looks to. Calmness turns ordinary moments into opportunities for leadership. It turns ordinary relationships into safe ones. It turns ordinary lives into meaningful ones. The beauty of these qualities, emotional control, deep listening, and calm presence, is that they do not depend on outward success, appearance, or social status. Anyone can develop them, regardless of background or circumstance. They do not require talent. They require intention. They do not require perfection. They require practice. And as you cultivate them, you begin to feel yourself rising above the emotional noise that traps so many people in cycles of conflict and misunderstanding. As these qualities grow within you, something extraordinary happens. People begin to respond differently to you. They trust you more. They open up to you more. They respect you without you ever having to demand it. You create an emotional environment that others want to step into because it feels safe, steady, and real. You become unforgettable, not for what you say or do, but for the way you make people feel. They feel calm around you, they feel heard around you, they feel grounded around you, and in a world full of loud voices and restless minds, that is one of the rarest and most powerful gifts you can offer. Emotional maturity, two qualities that show uncommon strength. There comes a point in every person's life when they must confront one of the hardest truths about human relationships. Not everything broken can be fixed. Not every ending will come with answers, and not every goodbye will give you the comfort your heart hoped for. It is a truth that feels harsh, sometimes cruel, but it also carries a profound form of liberation for those who are brave enough to accept it. Most people spend years exhausting themselves emotionally because they cling to situations long after those situations have stopped serving their growth. They fear letting go because they equate letting go with losing. But in reality, letting go is often the first moment they reclaim themselves. Walking away in peace is not a natural human instinct. Our ego wants closure. It wants explanations that soothe the sting of rejection, betrayal, or misunderstanding. It wants to be proven right, validated, acknowledged. The ego wants to win. And so, people remain attached to conflict because conflict feels like an opportunity to be understood one final time. They plead for clarity, argue for justice, or revisit old wounds in the hope that the other person will suddenly provide the answer that makes everything make sense. But most of the time, the answers never come. Or if they do not provide the relief people imagine. Instead, they keep them tied to a moment that should have already passed. To walk away in peace is to choose a different kind of strength. A strength that does not depend on the cooperation or understanding of another person. It is a strength born from self-respect. It says, I do not need this situation to resolve perfectly for me to move forward. I do not need to be right to reclaim my dignity. I do not need your approval or apology to restore my peace. It is the recognition that your well-being is an inner responsibility, not something to be negotiated in the emotional chaos of someone else's behavior. There is a quiet power in being able to release something without bitterness or violence or resentment. When you walk away in peace, you make a statement, not to the world, but to yourself. You declare that your emotional balance does not belong in someone else's hands. You affirm that no matter what has happened, you are capable of healing, capable of continuing, capable of rising. This act is not an escape or a defeat. It is an intentional closing of a door that no longer leads anywhere worth going. It is the moment when you stop fighting battles that drain you and start choosing environments that nourish you. People often misunderstand this kind of departure. They think that not arguing means you didn't care enough. They think that staying calm means you accepted mistreatment. They think that not demanding closure means you had nothing more to say. But walking away is not about proving anything to anyone. It is about preserving your integrity when the situation around you no longer honors it. It is about recognizing that chaos is contagious and choosing not to participate in it. It is about understanding that peace is not found by dragging someone into an argument. They will not willingly walk into clarity with you if they are committed to misunderstanding you. And so the strongest people are the ones who choose silence over shouting, distance over entanglement, peace over validation. They know that explanations are useless to those who refuse to listen and unnecessary for those who already understand. They step away not because they are weak, but because they value their time, their energy, and their emotional well-being too much to keep them trapped in conflict. But walking away is only one part of the deeper maturity this section reveals. The other part is perhaps even more challenging: the ability to forgive silently. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood aspects of human psychology. People often view it as surrender, as if forgiving means you approve of what happened or minimize the pain it caused. But forgiveness has nothing to do with condoning someone's actions. It has everything to do with freeing yourself from the emotional residue of those actions. Silent forgiveness is not performed for the other person. It is an internal decision that asks for no applause, no recognition, no reward. It is the moment you decide that carrying bitterness is too heavy, that anger has overstayed its welcome, and that resentment is poisoning you more than the original wound ever did. Forgiveness clears the debris left behind by past experiences, so you can walk without tripping on what no longer exists. It is not about rewriting history. It is about refusing to let history rewrite you. When people hold on to resentment, they often believe they are protecting themselves from future harm. They believe that staying angry keeps them strong. But anger does not protect, it corrodes. Resentment does not build walls, it builds cages. It keeps you tied to the person who hurt you in a way that steals your energy, your clarity, and your freedom. Silent forgiveness is the key that unlocks that cage. It says, I choose to release this, not because the other person deserves it, but because I do. This type of forgiveness requires emotional courage. It requires humility, because you must acknowledge your own vulnerability. It requires honesty, because you must confront the pain directly instead of masking it with rage. And it requires clarity, because you must be able to separate your worth from the actions of others. Silent forgiveness is a reclamation of your inner autonomy. It is the refusal to let someone else's behavior dictate your internal landscape indefinitely. Most people will never understand the depth of this strength, but they will feel it. They will feel it in the way you no longer react to the past. They will feel it in the steadiness of your presence, in the softness of your expression, in the calmness that replaces old agitation. They will feel it in the way you move forward without looking back, not because you are avoiding the past, but because you have genuinely outgrown it. Few things are as unforgettable as a person who rises beyond their wounds without carrying the weight of vengeance. Walking away in peace and forgiving silently are two of the highest forms of emotional maturity. They are not dramatic. They do not seek attention. They do not demand recognition. They operate quietly, almost invisibly, yet they transform your inner world in ways that few people can comprehend. These choices allow you to stop living reactively and start living intentionally. They free you from the emotional gravitational pull of situations that were never meant to define your life. They open space within you, space that can be filled with growth, clarity, and purpose instead of pain. When you cultivate these qualities, you become someone who does not just survive your experiences, you transcend them. You become someone others admire, not for your words, but for your way of being. You become someone who handles endings with grace instead of chaos. Someone who releases resentment without needing an audience. Someone who carries peace even in the aftermath of heartbreak. And that is what makes you unforgettable. The highest foundation. living for a greater purpose. There is a certain kind of person who moves through life with a quiet certainty, as if an invisible thread guides their steps. They do not appear rushed, nor do they seem easily distracted. They wake with clarity, act with intention, and rest with the feeling that their day contributed to something meaningful. These individuals are not driven by applause, praise, or external validation. They are driven by something much deeper: purpose. A higher purpose does not shout, it pulls. It shapes the way you think, the way you behave, the way you endure difficulty. It becomes the silent compass that orients your life toward growth, contribution, and self-realization. Most people drift. They move from task to task, goal to goal, relationship to relationship, without a deeper foundation beneath their actions. Their energy changes with their environment. Their confidence changes with other people's opinions, and their direction changes with their mood. They chase whatever seems urgent instead of what is important. And because of this, they become exhausted, unfulfilled, and emotionally fragile. Without purpose, life becomes a sequence of reactions rather than a journey of intention. To live for a higher purpose is to break free from this drifting state. It is the moment you recognize that life is not about chasing temporary validation, but about aligning your actions with something meaningful, something that rises above personal desire and ego. Purpose does not always arrive in a dramatic revelation. Sometimes it whispers. It emerges from the things that stir your spirit, the experiences that awaken your mind, the work that feels natural to you, the contribution that your heart knows it wants to make. And when you begin to follow those whispers, your life begins to reorganize itself around a new center of gravity. People who live with purpose possess a kind of inner steadiness that cannot be faked. It's not that they never feel lost or uncertain. Everyone does. But their uncertainty does not define them, because they trust the direction they are being shaped toward. They know that purpose is not a destination. It is a path. And as long as they stay on that path, even setbacks serve a purpose. Even pain becomes a teacher. Even obstacles become part of the structure that strengthens them from the inside. Purpose changes the way you handle adversity. When you do not know why you are living, every difficulty feels like a threat. Every challenge feels personal. Every failure feels like a sign that you should give up. But when you have a deeper mission guiding you, struggle becomes fuel. It may slow you down, but it does not stop you. It may wound you, but it does not weaken your commitment. You begin to see every experience as raw material for your growth, every hardship as refinement, every disappointment as redirection. A purpose-driven person knows that life is not about avoiding difficulty. It is about becoming someone capable of rising above it. They are not easily discouraged by setbacks, because setbacks do not alter who they are becoming. They are not swayed by criticism, because criticism does not cancel their mission. They are not hungry for recognition, because their fulfillment comes from alignment, not attention. And this independence, the ability to remain true to themselves regardless of the noise around them, is what makes them unforgettable. Another remarkable aspect of living with purpose is the clarity it brings. Purpose removes the fog from your mind. It helps you make decisions more easily because you are no longer choosing based on impulse, fear, or external pressure. You are choosing based on alignment. Does this move me closer to who I want to become? Does this support the life I am trying to build? Does this reflect the person I aspire to be? These questions become your internal filter, shaping your priorities and sharpening your focus. As purpose becomes the foundation of your life, distractions lose their power over you. You stop wasting time on petty conflicts, meaningless drama, or empty pursuits. You stop allowing other people's expectations to dictate your path. You stop scattering your energy across things that do not matter. Instead, your attention becomes a precious resource, directed toward actions and habits that contribute to your growth. You use your time more intentionally, your voice more consciously, your decisions more deliberately. The world becomes quieter, not because it has changed, but because your purpose has given you a sense of direction strong enough to drown out the noise. Living for a higher purpose also changes your relationship with success. Success is no longer defined by comparison or competition. It is defined by progression and integrity. It is defined by how closely your life reflects your values. A purpose-driven person understands that success is not measured by how many people see them, but by how deeply their work resonates with their own soul. They celebrate small steps because small steps, taken in alignment with one's purpose, accumulate into profound transformation. And perhaps one of the most overlooked aspects of purpose is the magnetism it creates. People naturally gravitate towards someone who knows where they are going, not because that person is perfect, but because they are authentic. There is something deeply attractive about a person who does not need approval to act, who does not need applause to feel worthy, who does not need to justify their path to anyone. Their quiet confidence inspires others. Their consistency earns respect. Their authenticity builds trust. Purpose-driven people become leaders, not by title, but by presence. They draw others into the gravity of their clarity. They become examples of what it looks like to live intentionally, to commit deeply, to grow continuously. And it is this quality, this ability to embody a deeper calling, that leaves an impression on anyone who crosses their path. But purpose is not something you find once and never question again. It evolves as you evolve. It deepens as you deepen. It becomes clearer as you grow more attuned to your own inner world. Sometimes it requires solitude. Sometimes it requires sacrifice. Sometimes it requires letting go of people, environments, or old identities that no longer support who you are becoming. But every time you choose purpose over comfort, clarity over convenience, truth over approval, you shape yourself into someone more powerful, more peaceful, and more whole. To live for a higher purpose is to choose a life of meaning over a life of distraction. It is to walk a path that might not always be understood, but is always deeply felt. It is to wake each day knowing that your life is not accidental, that your actions matter, your growth matters, your contribution matters. It is to live with the knowledge that you are becoming the fullest expression of who you are meant to be. And when someone witnesses a person living like this, they do not forget it. They may not fully understand the source of that person's strength, but they feel it. They may not know the details of their mission, but they recognize its authenticity. Purpose leaves a signature, a quiet, powerful imprint on the world and on the hearts of those who observe it. That is why those who live with purpose stand out. That is why they inspire without trying. That is why they become unforgettable. Conclusion: how to become unforgettable in a loud world. There is a moment in your life When you finally understand that the qualities that make a person unforgettable are not loud, dramatic, or attention-seeking. They are subtle. They are internal. They exist beneath the surface, woven into the way a person carries themselves, the way they respond to difficulties, the way they show up for themselves and others. What people remember, what stays with them long after the words have faded or the situation has passed, is the emotional imprint you leave behind. And that imprint has nothing to do with performance. It has everything to do with the depth of your inner world. We live in a loud world, a world obsessed with noise, speed, and impact. Everywhere you look, people are trying to be seen, trying to be heard, trying to be admired. They chase recognition the way a drowning person gasps for air. But the more they chase it, the further it moves away from them. Because memorability is not created through desperation. It is created through presence, through the quiet power of someone who has built themselves from the inside out. People may forget what you achieve. They may forget the milestones you reach or the status you gain. They may even forget what you said. But they will never forget how you made them feel. They will never forget the sense of steadiness you brought into their chaos, the clarity you carried into confusion, the emotional safety you created in moments of difficulty. They will never forget the way you chose dignity when others chose conflict, the way you listened when others only talked, the way you stayed anchored when the world tried to pull you apart. To become unforgettable in the deepest sense is not about impressing others. It is about awakening a version of yourself that lives with intention, compassion, self-respect, and purpose. It is about cultivating qualities that elevate every space you enter, qualities that transform conversations, ease tension, and invite authenticity in a world where so many feel forced to hide behind masks. When you begin to master your inner world, something extraordinary happens. The world begins to respond to you differently. People start to notice the way you hold yourself, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. They notice that you do not collapse under pressure, that you do not attack when you are misunderstood, that you do not seek approval to validate your existence. Instead, you move with a steadiness that seems almost foreign, in a culture ruled by emotional volatility. This steadiness is a gift, not only to yourself, but to everyone around you. It teaches people that peace is possible. It reminds them that strength does not have to be loud. It shows them that a human being can develop the discipline to rise above instinct, above chaos, above the noise of the moment. People feel safer with you, not because you shield them from life's storms, but because your presence becomes the quiet place where storms cannot reach. But the journey to this kind of presence is not passive. It is not something that appears overnight or through wishful thinking. It is something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice. You build it each time you choose calm over chaos. You build it each time you choose understanding over judgment. You build it each time you choose growth over ego. And eventually, these choices shape your character in ways that become impossible to ignore. Another reason people remember those who develop this depth is because these qualities are becoming increasingly rare. We live in an age of distraction. People are constantly pulled into their devices, their anxieties, their insecurities. They react before thinking, speak before listening, abandon their values at the slightest discomfort. And so when someone shows up with emotional maturity, with patience, with clarity, it feels like a breath of fresh air. It feels grounding. It feels human. In a world built on instability, stability becomes powerful. In a world built on external validation, self-validation becomes magnetic. In a world built on superficial connections, depth becomes unforgettable. You do not have to announce this transformation. The world will see it. The world will feel it. And those who cross your path will remember you, not because you were perfect, but because you were real. Real in your strength, real in your compassion, real in your presence. This kind of memorability has nothing to do with ego and everything to do with authenticity. It is not about how many people notice you, but how profoundly your presence affects the ones who do. It is about being the rare person who chooses wisdom over impulse, purpose over distraction, principle over convenience. It is about embodying the version of yourself that does not merely react to life, but shapes it with intention. And there is something else that makes a person unforgettable: their willingness to continue growing. A person who strives to learn, to become better, to refine their character, sends a silent message to the world. That evolution is possible, that self-mastery is attainable, that becoming a deeper human being is a lifelong journey worth taking. People admire those who do this, not because they are flawless, but because they are committed. Purpose creates gravity, and gravity draws people in. At this point in your journey, ask yourself what kind of presence you want to have in the lives of others. Do you want to be remembered as someone who reacted impulsively, or someone who responded intentionally, as someone who carried chaos, or someone who carried peace, as someone who demanded attention, or someone whose presence naturally commanded respect? These are not small questions. They are the questions that shape the trajectory of your character. If this message resonates with you, if you feel something awakening in you as you hear these words, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Your reflections help others grow, and they help this community deepen its conversation. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to support the channel. Your support encourages the creation of more content that empowers you to grow into the strongest version of yourself. In the end, becoming unforgettable is not about standing above others. It is about standing fully within yourself, calm, present, intentional, and true. It is about bringing a depth of humanity into a world that desperately needs it. The qualities that make a person unforgettable are not loud or showy. They are quiet, powerful currents flowing beneath the surface of your life. When you cultivate them, you do not just change the way others see you. You change the way you see yourself. And that change, the change that begins from within, is the one that lasts.